My roommate's girlfriend has been living here for 3 months rent-free, and now they're saying I'm the one who needs to leave. It was a Tuesday night. Not even a dramatic day like a Friday or a Saturday when people expect chaos. Just a regular Tuesday. I was sitting on the couch in the living room, my living room, or at least the living room I'd been paying half the rent on for the past 2 years, eating takeout and watching a documentary about ancient Egypt. The usual. Then the front door opened, and my roommate Jake walked in with his girlfriend Olivia. They'd been at dinner somewhere. Their hands were linked. They were laughing about something. Normal couple stuff. But there was something different about the way they walked in. Something in their posture. They weren't heading to his room like usual. They came straight toward me. Straight toward the couch. And they sat down on the other end. Both of them, like this was an intervention. I knew something was wrong before anyone said a word. You know that feeling? The hair on the back of your neck stands up. Your stomach drops a little. You just know. Jake cleared his throat. Hey man, we need to talk about something. I put my fork down. Turned off the documentary. Okay, what's up? Olivia spoke first. So we've been talking. A lot. About the living situation. I looked at Jake. He wasn't meeting my eyes. He was looking at the coffee table, the floor, anywhere but at me. Okay, I said again. Olivia took a breath. We think it's time for you to find your own place. I stared at her, then at Jake, then back at her. I'm sorry. What? We've been together for a while now, Olivia said. Like this was a perfectly reasonable thing to say. We need our own space. And since you're the one who's not in the relationship, it makes more sense for you to be the one to move out. Let me pause here and give you some context. Olivia had been living in our apartment for 3 months. 3 months. Rent-free. Not on the lease. Not paying a dime toward utilities, groceries, or the security deposit I'd put down. She had a key. She had a drawer in the bathroom. She had half the closet in Jake's room. She was basically a third roommate without any of the financial responsibility. And now they were sitting on the couch in the apartment I'd helped pick out, the apartment I'd been paying for faithfully for 2 years, telling me I was the one who needed to leave. I didn't yell. I didn't storm out. I just sat there, staring at them, trying to process the absolute audacity of what I just heard. You're kidding, right? I finally said. Jake finally looked at me. It's not personal, man. We just need our own space. Your own space, I repeated. You want me to move out so you can have your own space. In the apartment I've been living in for 2 years. While your girlfriend lives here for free. Olivia's face tightened. I don't live here for free. I help out. How? By using the shower? By eating the food in the fridge? By watching our Netflix? I clean. I cook sometimes. You clean your boyfriend's room. And you've cooked maybe 3 times in 3 months. That's not rent. Jake held up a hand. Okay. Let's not make this a thing. We're just saying, it makes more sense for you to find somewhere else. You're single. You don't have the same space needs we do. I laughed. Couldn't help it. It was the kind of laugh that comes out when something is so absurd you don't know how else to respond. I'm the one on the lease. I'm the one who pays half the rent. I'm the one who's been here since day one. And you're telling me I need to leave because your girlfriend needs space. She's not just my girlfriend anymore, Jake said quietly. We're talking about getting engaged. We need to start building a life together. And you think building a life together starts with kicking out the guy who's been paying the bills while she freeloads? Olivia stood up. You know what? This is exactly why we need you to leave. You're always like this. You never supported our relationship. You've been passive-aggressive since day one. I stood up too. I've been passive-aggressive? She moved in without asking. She doesn't pay anything. She uses our stuff. She's here all the time. And I've never said a word about it. Not once. I've been patient. I've been understanding. I've been waiting for you to have a conversation with me about how we're going to handle this. And now you want to have a conversation? By telling me to leave. The room got very quiet. The kind of quiet where you can hear the refrigerator humming from the kitchen. Jake stood up slowly. Look, we don't want this to be a fight. We're just trying to figure out what's best for everyone. What's best for everyone? I said. Or what's best for you? Neither of them answered. I grabbed my phone and my keys. I'm going for a walk. When I get back, I expect us to have a real conversation. About money. About the lease. About what's actually fair. Not whatever this was. I walked out. I didn't slam the door, but I wanted to. By the end of this video, you're going to hear the full story of how a 2-bedroom apartment became a war zone. You're going to hear about the 3 months of silence, the mounting bills, the passive-aggressive notes, and the night I finally realized I was living with 2 people who saw me as an obstacle, not a roommate. And you're going to find out what happened when I stopped being nice and started standing up for myself. Let me back up a little. My name is Marcus, I'm 27 years old, and up until about 6 months ago, I thought I had the perfect roommate situation. I met Jake in college. We weren't best friends or anything, but we ran in the same circles, had a few classes together, got along well enough. After graduation, we both ended up in the same city, both looking for apartments, both realizing that living alone in a major city was way too expensive. So we decided to give the roommate thing a shot. It worked out better than I expected. We were both pretty low maintenance, clean enough, respectful of each other's space. We'd hang out sometimes, watch a game, grab a beer, but mostly we just coexisted peacefully. No drama. No passive-aggressive notes about dishes in the sink. It was the kind of roommate situation you don't appreciate until you hear other people's horror stories. 2 years ago, we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent part of town. Good location, fair price, close to both our jobs. We split everything 50-50. Rent, utilities, internet. Groceries were separate, but we'd share stuff sometimes. It worked. Then Jake started dating Olivia. At first, it was fine. She seemed nice enough. She'd come over a few nights a week, hang out in his room, watch movies in the living room. Normal girlfriend stuff. I was happy for him. He'd been single for a while and he seemed really into her. The problems started small. Olivia started staying over more often. 2 nights a week became 4. 4 became 5. Then she started spending weekends. Then she stopped going home at all. I noticed she had a key one day when I came home from work and she was already there, sitting on the couch in her pajamas, watching TV. "Oh, hey," she said, like it was completely normal for her to be in my apartment on a Tuesday afternoon with her own key. "Hey," I said, "did Jake give you a key?" "Yeah. He said it'd be easier, so I don't have to wait for him to get home." I nodded, said nothing, told myself it was fine. Told myself she was just staying over more because they were in the honeymoon phase. Told myself it would settle down. It didn't settle down. Over the next few months, Olivia's presence in the apartment went from frequent guest to unacknowledged roommate. She had a drawer in the bathroom, then a shelf, then half the medicine cabinet. Her toothbrush sat next to mine. Her shampoo took up space in the shower. Her hairdryer was permanently plugged in by the mirror. In the kitchen, her food started appearing in the fridge. Yogurt, salad mix, those fancy oat milks that cost $8 a carton. At first, I thought she was just bringing stuff over for the nights she stayed. But the food kept replenishing. The leftovers kept appearing. She wasn't bringing groceries for the nights she was here. She was stocking her own kitchen. I noticed the utilities going up too. The electricity bill jumped by about $30 a month. Water went up. Gas. All of it. Nothing dramatic on its own, but added together it was noticeable. I brought it up to Jake one night when Olivia wasn't there. Casual. Not accusatory. "Hey man, you notice the bills have been a little higher lately?" He shrugged. "Probably just summer rates. AC costs more." "Yeah, maybe. I was just thinking. Since Olivia's been staying over a lot more, maybe we should talk about splitting things differently?" He looked at me like I'd suggested something offensive. "She doesn't live here, man. She just stays over." "Jake. She's been here every night for 3 weeks. She has her own place. She just likes being here. It's not a big deal." I wanted to push harder. I wanted to point out that she had a key, a drawer, a shelf, and a permanent spot in the bathroom. I wanted to say that if it walks like a roommate and quacks like a roommate, it's a roommate. But I didn't, because I didn't want to be that guy. The roommate who complains about his friend's girlfriend. The one who makes things weird. So I let it go. And I kept letting it go. Week after week. Month after month. Let me break down the financial math for you because this is where things get really infuriating. Our 2-bedroom apartment costs $2,400 a month. That's $1,200 each for Jake and me. Plus utilities, which averaged about $200 a month total, so another $100 each. So my monthly housing costs were around $1,300. When Olivia moved in, and yes, I'm going to call it moving in because that's what it was, my costs didn't go down. They went up. The electricity bill went from $80 to $110. Water from $40 to $60. Gas from $30 to $45. Internet stayed the same, but she was using it. Netflix? She added her profile. Hulu? Same. Spotify? She was on Jake's family plan, so at least that wasn't my problem. But the real kicker was the groceries. I used to spend about $300 a month on food. When Olivia moved in, that number jumped to $450. Because she wasn't just eating Jake's food. She was eating mine. I'd come home to find leftovers I'd been planning to eat for dinner gone. My cereal would be half empty when I knew I'd just bought it. Snacks I'd bought for the week would disappear. And when I'd ask about it, Olivia would say, "Oh, I was hungry. I'll replace it." She never replaced it. I tried to be chill about it. I told myself it was just food. It wasn't worth making things weird over a box of cereal and some leftovers. But it added up. And every month, when I paid my bills, I felt this growing resentment that I kept swallowing down. I did the math eventually. Over 3 months, the extra utilities, the stolen groceries, the increased usage of shared resources, Olivia was costing me about $200 a month. That's $600 total. For someone who didn't pay a dime toward rent. And Jake? Jake was paying the same $1,200 he'd always paid. But now he had his girlfriend living with him, sharing his room, sharing his food, sharing his life. His cost of living didn't go up. It probably went down because she was buying some of their shared groceries. He was getting the benefit of having a live-in girlfriend without any of the financial downside. I was the one subsidizing their relationship, and I was too nice to say anything about it. As the weeks went on, the tension in the apartment became palpable. Not because anything was being said out loud, but because of all the things that weren't being said. The silences, the looks, the small signs that I was no longer a welcomed presence in my own home. It started with the living room. I used to watch TV there most nights. Nothing crazy, an hour or two, then off to bed. But after Olivia moved in, she and Jake started using the living room as their space. They'd be out there watching movies, cuddled up on the couch, and whenever I'd come out to join them, things would get weird. They'd stop talking. They'd adjust their position. They'd look at me like I was interrupting something. So I stopped going out there. I started staying in my room more, eating dinner at my desk, watching TV on my laptop, making myself smaller and smaller in my own apartment. Then came the notes. The first one was on the fridge. "Please label your food if you don't want others to eat it." It was written in Olivia's handwriting. I stared at it for a long time because the irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. She was eating my food. And now she was telling me to label my food so she wouldn't eat it? Not, "I'm sorry I ate your food." Not, "I'll stop eating your food." Just label it so I know which stuff to avoid. I didn't respond. I just started labeling my food. But the resentment grew. The second note was on the bathroom mirror. "Please wipe down the sink after you shave." Fair enough. I'm not the tittiest person. But I'd been wiping down the sink for 2 years without anyone asking. The note felt less like a reasonable request and more like a signal that I was being watched, judged, found wanting. The third note was on the door to the washer and dryer. "Please don't leave your laundry in the machine. Some of us need to use it." This one got under my skin because the laundry situation had been fine for 2 years. Jake and I had a system. But now there was a third person's laundry in the mix, Olivia's. And somehow I was the one causing the problem. I confronted Jake about the notes one night. "Is Olivia going to leave notes about everything now?" He shrugged. She's just trying to keep things organized. It's not personal. It feels personal when I'm the only one getting notes. She leaves notes for me too. Does she? Because I haven't seen any. He didn't have an answer for that. I knew I needed to have a real conversation with Jake. A conversation about Olivia, about rent, about boundaries, about what was fair. But I kept putting it off. Because I hate confrontation. Because I didn't want to be the bad guy. Because I kept hoping things would work themselves out. They didn't. The truth is, I was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if I pushed. Afraid of losing my living situation. Afraid of the awkwardness that would follow. Afraid of being seen as the unreasonable one. So I did what a lot of people do in these situations. I made excuses. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself they'd get their own place soon. I told myself I was overreacting. But the resentment kept building. Every time I came home and saw Olivia's shoes by the door. Every time I reached for something in the fridge and it was gone. Every time I wanted to watch TV and they were already out there. Every time I paid a bill that should have been split 3 ways. I was becoming a stranger in my own home. And I was letting it happen. The Tuesday night confrontation I described at the beginning wasn't the first time they'd brought up me leaving. It was just the first time they'd said it out loud. A week before that, I'd overheard them talking in Jake's room. I wasn't eavesdropping, our walls are thin. But I heard enough. "Babe, we need our own space," Olivia was saying. "It's weird having him here all the time." "He's on the lease," Jake said. "I can't just kick him out." "We're not kicking him out. We're asking him to find his own place. It's different. He's been here for 2 years. It's his apartment too. It's an apartment. He can find another one. You and I are trying to build something. He's in the way." I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to my roommate's girlfriend talk about me like I was furniture. Something to be moved out of the way. An obstacle to their happiness. I should have knocked on the door right then. I should have said, "I heard what you said. Let's talk about it." But I didn't. I just lay there, feeling smaller and smaller, until I finally fell asleep. That week, I started looking for other apartments. Not because I was planning to leave, but because I wanted to know what my options were. What I found was depressing. Rents had gone up. A lot. The same apartment I was paying $1,200 for would now cost me $1,800 on my own. Even a studio in a decent area was pushing $1,500. I couldn't afford to move. Not without a major change in my finances. And that's when the anger started to replace the fear. Why should I have to move? I was the one on the lease. I was the one paying my share. I was the one who'd been here from the beginning. She was the one who'd moved in without asking. She was the one who wasn't paying. She was the one who should leave. But that's not how they saw it. And that Tuesday night, they made that clear. That walk I took after the confrontation lasted about 2 hours. I walked through my neighborhood, then through the next one, then through the park, then back again. My brain was spinning. I was replaying the conversation, thinking about all the things I should have said, all the ways I should have stood up for myself. I should have said, "I've been paying half the rent for 2 years. She's been here for 3 months and hasn't paid a dime. If anyone should leave, it's her." I should have said, "You didn't ask me if she could move in. You just let it happen. And now you want me to leave because you want space? That's not how this works." I should have said, "I've been patient. I've been understanding. I've been letting this slide because I didn't want to cause problems. But you're the ones causing problems. You're the ones who changed the agreement. You're the ones who owe me an explanation, not the other way around." But I didn't say any of that. I just walked out. And now I was walking back in, not sure what I was going to find. When I got back to the apartment, Jake was alone in the living room. Olivia was in his room with the door closed. "Hey," he said. His voice was different, softer. "I'm sorry about earlier. That wasn't the right way to have that conversation." I sat down across from him. "No, it wasn't. I've been thinking about what you said. About the money. About her living here." "Yeah," he sighed. "She does live here. I know she does. I've been telling myself it's temporary, that she still has her own place, but she's been here every night for 3 months. She has a key. Her stuff is everywhere. I know that's not fair to you. So what do we do about it? He was quiet for a minute. I don't know. I really don't. I love her. I want to be with her. But I also don't want to screw you over. You've been a good roommate, a good friend. And I know I've been taking advantage of that. I've been letting you, I said. That's on me too. I should have said something months ago. Why didn't you? I thought about it. Because I didn't want to be the bad guy. I didn't want to be the roommate who complains about his friend's girlfriend. I thought if I just waited, things would work themselves out. Instead, they got worse. Yeah, they got worse. What followed was the longest, most difficult conversation Jake and I had ever had. We talked about everything. The rent, the utilities, the food, the living room, the notes, all of it. I told him about the extra costs. The $200 a month I'd been paying because of Olivia's presence. The groceries that disappeared. The utilities that spiked. He listened. He didn't make excuses. He didn't defend her. He just listened. I didn't realize, he said when I was done. I mean, I noticed the bills went up, but I thought it was just, I don't know, inflation or something. It wasn't inflation. It was her. I know that now. So what do we do? He ran his hands through his hair. Let me talk to her. Let me explain what you told me. Maybe we can figure out a way for her to contribute. Pay a third of the rent. Split the utilities 3 ways. Something like that. And if she doesn't want to? He looked at me. Then she needs to go back to her own place. Or we need to find a new situation. But it's not fair for you to keep subsidizing us. I nodded. It was more than I'd expected. More than I'd hoped for. One more thing, I said. What? The notes. They need to stop. This is my home too. I shouldn't feel like I'm being policed in my own apartment. He nodded. I'll talk to her about that too. We sat in silence for a minute. The tension in the room had shifted. It wasn't gone. But it was different. Less hostile. More like 2 people who'd finally stopped pretending and started being honest with each other. I'm sorry, Jake said, for letting it get this far. I should have talked to you months ago. I should have asked you how you felt about her being here. I should have made sure everything was fair. I'm sorry too, for not saying anything, for letting it build up until I exploded. Are we good? I thought about it. Were we good? Not entirely. There was still a lot to figure out. But we were better than we'd been an hour ago. We're getting there, I said. The next day, Jake had his talk with Olivia. I don't know exactly what was said. I wasn't there, but I could hear raised voices from behind the closed door. Her voice, sharp and angry. His voice, quieter, trying to calm her down. Doors closing. Silence. When they came out, Olivia's face was red. She didn't look at me. She went straight to the bathroom and closed the door. Jake came over to where I was sitting in the kitchen. That went about as well as you'd expect, he said. She's not happy. She thinks I'm choosing you over her. Are you? He sighed. I'm choosing what's fair, what's right. She doesn't see it that way. What did you propose? I told her she needs to start paying a third of the rent and utilities, starting this month, and that she needs to stop leaving notes and start having actual conversations if there's a problem. And she said she can't afford a third of the rent. She's still paying for her own apartment, even though she's never there. She said if she's going to pay rent here, she might as well just move out. She still has her own apartment? Yeah, she's been paying for it this whole time. 3 months of rent on a place she never stays at. I stared at him. She's been paying rent on her own place while living here for free, and I've been covering her costs here. He winced. I know. It's insane. I didn't know until today. She never told me she was still paying rent over there. I assumed she'd given it up. How much is her rent? $800 a month. I did the math quickly. She'd been paying $800 a month for an apartment she wasn't using, while I'd been paying an extra $200 a month to cover her presence in ours. Combined, that was $1,000 a month being wasted. For 3 months. $3,000 down the drain. And she can't afford to pay a third of our rent? She said she'd have to give up her apartment first. But she's not ready to do that. She says she wants to keep her options open. Keep her options open. While living in my apartment. While eating my food. While using my utilities. While making me feel like a guest in my own home. I took a deep breath. So what happens now? She said she needs to think about it. She went back to her place for the night. She'll be back tomorrow. While Olivia was gone, I did what I always do when I'm stressed. I researched. I wanted to know if my situation was common. Turns out, roommate conflicts about significant others are incredibly common. The numbers. According to a survey by Apartment List, about 30% of renters have had a conflict with a roommate over a partner moving in or staying too often. Among those conflicts, the most common issues were not contributing to rent, 65%, taking up too much space, 58%, and causing utility bills to increase, 47%. About 40% of people say they've moved out of a shared living situation because of a roommate's partner. The average partner rent in situations where a couple shares a space with a single roommate is about 25 to 33% less per person than if everyone was splitting equally, meaning the single person often ends up subsidizing the couple. The legal side. I also looked up the legal side of things. In most states, if someone has been living in an apartment for more than 30 days, they may have established tenancy, even if they're not on the lease. That means you can't just kick them out without going through the formal eviction process. But if they're not on the lease, they also don't have the same rights as a tenant. It's a gray area that causes endless problems. The fair split. There's a lot of debate about how rent should be split when a couple lives with a single person. Some say split by room, the couple pays for one room, the single person pays for the other. Others say split by person 3 ways because 3 people are using the shared spaces and utilities. The fair approach usually falls somewhere in between. A common formula is split the common areas equally, by person, and split the private rooms by space, by room. That usually ends up with the couple paying about 60 to 65% of the rent, and the single person paying 35 to 40%. In my case, Jake and I had been paying 50 to 50, which was fair when it was just us. With Olivia living there, the fair split should have been something like 65 to 35 or even 70 to 30. Instead, I was paying more than my fair share, and Jake was paying less than his. The more I learned, the more I realized that my feelings weren't just feelings. They were backed by logic, by common practice, by the basic principle of fairness. I wasn't being unreasonable. I was being taken advantage of. Olivia came back the next evening. She didn't look at me when she walked in. She went straight to Jake's room. The door closed. I could hear them talking, but not the words. About an hour later, they both came out. Jake looked exhausted. Olivia looked determined. "We need to talk," she said. Not asked. Said. I sat down at the kitchen table. They sat across from me. "I've been thinking about what you said," Olivia began. "About me paying rent. And I've decided something." I waited. "I'm not going to pay rent here." I felt my jaw tighten, but I didn't say anything. "Here's why," she continued. "I still have my own apartment. I'm paying for it. I'm not going to pay for 2 places. That's insane." "You could give up your apartment," I said quietly. "I'm not ready to do that. This isn't my home. It's Jake's home. And yours. I'm just here a lot." "You're not just here a lot. You live here. You have a key. Your stuff is everywhere. You've been here every night for 3 months. That doesn't mean I live here." "By every definition, it does." Her face flushed. "You know what? This is exactly why I didn't want to have this conversation. You're not going to listen to anything I say. You've already decided I'm the bad guy." "I haven't decided anything. I'm just stating facts. You're here. You use resources. Those resources cost money. It's not fair for me to pay for them alone." "What about Jake? Why isn't he paying more?" "He's the one who invited me to stay." I looked at Jake. He was staring at the table. "Jake and I need to figure out our own arrangement," I said. "But the fact is, since you've been here, My costs have gone up by about $200 a month. That's money I shouldn't have to pay. Someone needs to cover it. Olivia stood up. I'm not paying rent in a place where I'm not on the lease. If you want me to contribute, put me on the lease. Then we can talk. You want to be on the lease? You want to be legally responsible for this apartment. Why not? If I'm paying, I should have rights. Jake spoke up for the first time. Babe, being on the lease is a big deal. If something happens, you're on the hook. Then I'm not paying. She crossed her arms. I crossed mine. Jake sat between us, looking like a man who wanted to be anywhere else. This isn't going to work, I said finally. We need a solution. All of us. Not just me, not just her. All of us. After another hour of tense conversation, we finally reached something approaching a compromise. Olivia would not pay rent. That was non-negotiable for her. But she would start contributing in other ways. She agreed to cover the increase in utilities. Every month, she'd look at the bills and pay the difference between what they were before she moved in and what they were now. That averaged out to about $50 to $70 a month. She agreed to buy her own groceries and label them. No more eating my food. She agreed to stop leaving passive-aggressive notes. If there was a problem, she'd talk to me directly. Or Jake would talk to me. No more notes. And she agreed that if she was going to continue staying at the apartment most nights, she'd spend at least 2 nights a week at her own place, giving everyone a little breathing room. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't what I'd hoped for, but it was something. A step in the right direction. Jake, for his part, agreed to cover a larger share of the rent starting next month. Not a full third. He couldn't afford that, but an extra $150 a month, bringing his share to $1,350 and mine down to $1,050. That would make up for the months I'd been overpaying, at least partially. I agreed to that even though it wasn't entirely fair. Because I was tired. Because I wanted peace. Because I'd learned that sometimes, in shared living situations, you don't get everything you want. You get what you can live with. The first month after our agreement was better. Not great, but better. The notes stopped. That was the biggest relief. I could use the bathroom without feeling like I was being graded. I could do my laundry without worrying about someone timing my cycles. Olivia was more careful about groceries. She had her own shelf in the fridge now, clearly labeled. I had mine. The middle shelf was shared, for things like milk and eggs that everyone used. The utilities went down a little, probably because Olivia was more conscious of what she was using. She started turning off lights when she left a room. She took shorter showers. Small things, but they added up. But there were still tensions. Olivia still spent most of her time in the living room with Jake, and I still felt like I was intruding when I wanted to watch TV. She still looked at me sometimes like I was an inconvenience. And Jake still seemed caught in the middle, trying to keep everyone happy. I started spending more time out of the apartment. Joined a gym. Took up running. Found a coffee shop with good Wi-Fi where I could work sometimes. I was making myself smaller again, finding ways to avoid the discomfort of my own home. And that's when I realized that the compromise, while better than before, still wasn't working. Because I was still the one accommodating. I was still the one making space. I was still the one who felt like a guest. About a month after our agreement, I had a moment of clarity. I was in my room, lying on my bed, scrolling through my phone. Through the wall, I could hear Jake and Olivia laughing at something on TV. The sound of their happiness filled the apartment. And I realized that in the months since she'd moved in, I'd become a ghost in my own home. I didn't use the living room anymore. I ate in my room. I watched TV on my laptop. I timed my bathroom use to avoid running into them. I was paying $1,050 a month. Still a significant amount of money, to live in a space where I felt like I didn't belong. The compromise hadn't fixed the problem. It had just made it less bad. But the core issue remained. I was living with a couple, and couples naturally push out the third person. Not on purpose necessarily, just by virtue of being two people who want to be together. They take over the common spaces. They create their own routines. And the single person either adapts or gets squeezed out. I was getting squeezed out. I started thinking about what I really wanted. Not what was fair. Not what was reasonable. What I wanted. I wanted to come home and watch TV without feeling like I was interrupting. I wanted to cook dinner without someone else hovering in the kitchen. I wanted to walk around in my boxers without worrying about someone's girlfriend seeing me. I wanted to feel like my home was mine. And I realized that wasn't going to happen as long as Olivia was there. And Olivia wasn't going anywhere. A few days later, I sat down with Jake. Just Jake. I asked him to get coffee with me, away from the apartment somewhere neutral. I've been thinking about things, I said. About the living situation. He sighed. I was afraid you were going to say that. I don't think the compromise is working. Not really. Not for any of us. What do you mean? I told him what I'd been feeling. The ghost feeling. The shrinking. The constant accommodation. I tried to say it without blame, without anger. Just facts. I'm not happy, I said. And I don't think you're happy either. You're always in the middle trying to make everyone happy. That's not fair to you. He was quiet for a minute. What do you want to do? I think I need to move out. He looked surprised. You do. I've been thinking about it for a while. This is your place now. Yours and Olivia's. I'm just here. And I don't want to be the guy who's in the way. I don't want to be the reason you two can't live the way you want to live. You're not in the way. I am though. Not on purpose. But I am. And I don't want to spend another year feeling like a guest in my own home. Jake was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was thick. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it ended up like this. You were here first. You're the one who helped me find this place. And I let her come in and take over. I didn't stand up for you. I didn't make sure things were fair. You were in love. It happens. That's not an excuse. It's a reason, not an excuse. There's a difference. He nodded slowly. So what's the plan? When are you thinking of moving? I need to find a place first. Maybe a month or two. I'm going to start looking this week. What about the lease? We're both on it. I'll talk to the landlord. See if I can get my name taken off. Or you can find someone to take my spot. He nodded. Okay, whatever you need. I'll make it work. We sat there for a while, drinking our coffee, not saying much. The conversation we should have had months ago. The conversation that might have saved things. Or maybe it was always going to end this way. Maybe some situations just aren't fixable. I started looking for apartments that week. It was depressing at first. Everything in my price range was either in a bad neighborhood or a shoebox. I'd gotten used to having space. A real living room. A real kitchen. A bedroom that wasn't just a bed in a box. The idea of downsizing to a studio or a tiny one-bedroom felt like a step backward. But I kept looking. And eventually I found something. A one-bedroom in an older building about 20 minutes away. Not fancy. No dishwasher, no in-unit laundry. But it was mine. All mine. No roommates. No girlfriends with keys. No notes on the fridge. The rent was $1,400. More than I'd been paying. But less than I'd feared. I'd have to tighten my budget a little. But it was doable. And the thought of having my own space, my own bathroom, my own kitchen, my own TV, it was worth the extra money. I put down a deposit. Signed a lease. Started packing. The last month in the apartment was strange. Awkward. Like living with exes after a breakup. Everyone was polite. Too polite. The kind of polite that comes from not wanting to cause any more problems before the separation is final. Olivia was quieter. She stopped using the living room as much. Maybe she felt guilty. Maybe she was just relieved that she'd won. I don't know. I stopped trying to read her. Jake and I talked more than we had in months. Not about anything deep. Just normal stuff. Work. Sports. Old college stories. It was like we were trying to remember why we'd been friends in the first place, before everything got complicated. The night before I moved out, we ordered pizza. The three of us sat at the kitchen table. The same kitchen table where Olivia had told me she wouldn't pay rent, and ate pizza and drank beer. It was almost normal. Almost like the first few months, before everything went sideways. I'm going to miss this place, I said. It's a good apartment. It is, Jake said. Olivia didn't say anything, but she didn't look away either. You know, she said finally, I didn't mean for things to get so messy. I know. I wanted to be with him, and I didn't think about how it was affecting you. That was wrong. I nodded. It was. But I didn't handle it right either. I should have said something earlier, before it got this bad. If you had, would it have changed anything? I thought about it. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But at least we would have tried. We finished our pizza. We drank our beer. We said goodnight. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was an ending. And sometimes that's enough. Moving day was a blur. Boxes, tape, a U-Haul that was too small for everything. Jake helped me load the truck. Olivia stayed in their room. I didn't expect her to help. I didn't want her to. When the last box was loaded, I stood in the empty living room for a minute, looking at the walls, the floors, the window where I used to watch the sunset. It was just an apartment, just rooms, but it had been home for 2 years, and leaving it felt bigger than it should have. Jake came and stood next to me. You okay? He asked. Yeah, just processing. You're going to be fine. The new place is cool. You're going to make it your own. I know. It's just, this was the first place that felt like mine, you know? After college. After all the terrible roommates. This was the one that worked. It worked for a while. It did. We stood there in silence for a minute. Are we going to be okay? Jake asked. I looked at him. My old college friend. My roommate for 2 years. The guy who'd been there through good times and bad. The guy who'd let his girlfriend take over our apartment and then blamed me for not being okay with it. I don't know, I said. Maybe. Give it some time. It's been 6 months since I moved out. The most common causes. Cleanliness, 34%. Money issues, 28%. And significant others, 22%. Among people who had conflicts about significant others, 67% said the issue was the partner moving in without permission or agreement. 58% said the issue was the partner not contributing to rent or bills. 44% said the partner caused them to feel like a guest in their own home. From a study on shared housing dynamics, couples who live with a single roommate are significantly more likely to take over common spaces than the single roommate is. The single roommate in these arrangements reports lower satisfaction with their living situation than either member of the couple. 73% of single roommates living with couples say they have considered moving out because of feeling excluded. From legal resources. In most states, a guest becomes a tenant after 30 days of continuous stay, regardless of whether they're on the lease. Landlords can evict tenants who allow unauthorized occupants to move in. Roommates can be held jointly liable for damages caused by unauthorized occupants. I didn't know any of this when I was in the middle of it. If I had, I might have handled things differently. I might have known that I had rights, that it wasn't just me being difficult, that what was happening wasn't okay. If you're watching this and you're in a similar situation, a roommate's partner has moved in, you're paying too much, you feel like a guest in your own home. Here's what I tell you. Have the conversation early. The moment you notice something is off, say something. Not in anger, not in accusation, just a conversation. Hey, I've noticed Olivia's been here a lot more. How are we thinking about handling that? The longer you wait, the harder it gets. Know what you want before you go in. What's your ideal outcome? Do you want the partner to pay rent? Do you want them to move out? Do you want to move out yourself? Know your bottom line. Know what you're willing to accept and what you're not. Use numbers, not feelings. When you talk about money, bring the actual numbers. Show the bills. Show how much they've gone up. Show what fair rent would look like under different splits. Feelings are important, but numbers are hard to argue with. Be prepared for pushback. They might get defensive. They might say you're being unreasonable. They might make you feel like the bad guy. Don't let that shake you. You're not being unreasonable. You're asking for fairness. Know your rights. Check your lease. Look up tenant laws in your area. If someone has been living there for 30 days or more, they may have established tenancy. That gives you leverage, but it also means you can't just kick them out. Know where you stand legally. Be willing to walk away. Sometimes the situation can't be fixed. Sometimes the relationship with your roommate is already broken. Sometimes the only way to get your peace back is to leave. It's not fair. It's not right. But sometimes it's necessary. I'm writing this from my apartment. My one-bedroom, no roommate, no notes on the fridge apartment. It's not perfect. The walls are still landlord beige. The kitchen is still tiny. The shower head is still at armpit level. But it's mine. I've started making it my own. Painted the living room a color I actually like. Bought a couch that I picked out myself. Put up some art. It's small. It's simple. But when I come home at the end of the day, I feel myself relax. I feel safe. I feel like I belong here. Jake and I still talk occasionally. We got lunch last month. It was nice. Not like old times, but nice. He told me he and Olivia are talking about getting their own place. A one-bedroom, just the two of them. No roommates. I told him that sounded like a good idea. He asked if I was angry. About everything that happened. I thought about it for a minute. I said. But I'm not anymore. I learned a lot from that situation. About standing up for myself. About knowing what I need. About not being afraid to ask for it. You shouldn't have had to learn it that way. Maybe. But I did. And I'm better for it. He nodded. I'm still sorry. I know. We finished our lunch. We hugged. We went our separate ways. I don't know if we'll be friends again the way we were before. Maybe. Maybe not. But I'm okay with that. Some friendships are for a season. Some are for a reason. Ours was for both. So what's the moral of this story? A few things. Your home is your sanctuary. You shouldn't have to feel like a guest in a place you pay for. You shouldn't have to make yourself smaller to accommodate people who don't respect your space. Fair is fair. If someone is living in your home, using your utilities, eating your food, they need to contribute. That's not being greedy. That's being an adult. Speak up early. The longer you wait, the harder it gets. The resentment builds. The situation becomes normal. And by the time you finally say something, it's too late to fix. You're allowed to choose yourself. I spent months trying to be accommodating. Trying to be nice. Trying not to make waves. And all it got me was a $5,000 bill and a lot of sleepless nights. Sometimes the best thing you can do is put yourself first. Walking away isn't giving up. I thought moving out meant I lost. That they won. But that's not how I see it now. I didn't lose. I chose my peace over their convenience. And that's not losing. That's winning. If you're watching this and you're in a situation like I was, a roommate's partner has moved in, you're paying too much, you feel like you don't belong. I want you to hear this. You're not wrong for feeling the way you feel. You're not being unreasonable. You're not the bad guy. You're a person who deserves a home where you feel comfortable, respected, and valued. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The conversation you need to have is hard. It's awkward. It might end a friendship. But staying in a situation that's slowly draining you is worse. Trust me. I stayed for 3 months too long. And I have the $5,000 and the sleepless nights to show for it. You deserve better. You deserve a home that feels like home. You deserve to come home and relax, not to brace yourself. You deserve to be more than a third wheel in your own life. It's not too late to speak up. It's not too late to set boundaries. It's not too late to choose yourself. I did, and I've never been happier. If you like this story and want to hear more real-life roommate horror stories, click the video on screen right now. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves. And remember, your home is your sanctuary. Don't let anyone take that from you.